Today we will be looking at Unit 8, elements that contribute to unsafe practices in the working environment and how to prevent them. Okay, so what are the learning outcomes? Demonstrate an understanding of the various elements that contribute to unsafe practices and how to prevent them. Explain the impact of unsafe practices on employees and an organization, and explain the management and prevention of unsafe practices. Okay, so here in this chapter we're going to help you understand the various elements that obviously contribute to the unsafe practices and how we can go about mitigating against them. So in Unit 7 we spoke about an unsafe act versus an unsafe condition. Okay, now we're going to discuss an unsafe practice defined. So what is that? Okay, an unsafe practice can be defined as a behavior that places people in either bodily or emotional danger. Okay, so when you look at an unsafe practice, we take into consideration an unsafe act and an unsafe condition, and we think of an unsafe practice. Okay, an unsafe practice can also be described as a human action. Okay, that has resulted in a hazard and leads to bodily injury. Okay, management and employees can cause injury by commission. When we talk about commission, which means it can be by doing something. For example, you are working on a pipeline, you're busy tightening a bolt with a spanner, you put your finger in the incorrect place and you get a pinch point and your finger needs a stitch. Okay, that is by commission. You're actually executing it. Okay, in such a case, management should determine whether the injured employee has sufficient training, whether they're put under pressure to finish the task, and what procedures were in place when we look at that specific task. Okay, so if we look at the individual who's on a pipeline, perhaps he's injured himself now because he's got 5 minutes to tighten this bolt and pack up and leave. So now he's going very fast and he's trying to get into a position which will allow him to tighten the bolt faster, which leads to him putting his hand in the wrong place on the pipeline, and he ends up injuring his finger. Okay. Now, when we look at that unsafe practice, it is human behavior. Okay, human behavior is majority, is what causes our incidents. Okay, when the company might have a procedure in place, however, certain factors will result in a different behavior based on the employees. Okay, not every employee is going to follow your system, your safety system. Therefore, we need to ensure we are always monitoring. Okay, if the safety officer or the safety rep were there watching the individual tighten the bolt in a rush, they would have gone to him, told him, can we just slow down, follow the procedure? I know you want to finish up fast. However, when we try and finish faster, we result in further injury. Okay, so types of errors and violations. Okay, errors, skill-based errors. Okay, skill-based errors may be from not having the correct skill to execute the job. Okay, perhaps you're working at heights and you're not trained to work at heights. Okay, you don't have that skill. It is the company's responsibility to ensure that you have the required competency to execute the job. Decision errors, okay? Like we said, you want to finish work faster, so you speed up, which results in an injury. Okay, perceptual errors, when employee century is tainted and choices made based on defective information. Okay, perhaps there was actually no rush to finish the job, but if you saw everyone else was packing up, so you had a perceptual error of trying to speed up. Okay, so preconditions for unsafe practices. What leads to unsafe practices? What are we actually exposed to that might lead to a near miss or an incident? Well, everything we do in our everyday lives Starting from when you wake up in the morning, you make yourself a cup of coffee, so many things have already created a precondition for an unsafe practice. For example, starting with the kettle. Perhaps you touch the kettle and it's boiling, you burn your hand. Perhaps you're pouring the kettle, the water spills, touches your hand, you get a burn. Okay, start drinking your coffee, it's boiling hot, you mess it all over yourself. Okay, perhaps it messes all over your laptop, ruins the property damage of your laptop. Okay, it all starts with everything that we do. So when we look at preconditions for site, okay, or our working environments, okay, environmental factors can include our lighting. Okay, are we working in a shed? Is there this required lighting? Is there ventilation? Is there appropriate workflow? Do we have a chair to sit on? Okay, is it humid? Is it freezing? All of those environmental factors can influence the way our unsafe practices take place. Okay, and all of these factors are taken into consideration in Occupational Health and Safety Act, okay, under facilities regulations, okay. Conditions of employees. Perhaps you come to work and you've been exhausted. Maybe you have a newborn baby at home and you've had a lack of sleep. Therefore, you get to work and your mental state is not where it should be. You are tired. You are stressed. That can lead to unnecessary mistakes on the job, okay. Staff factors, okay. For example, resource management, planning, personal readiness, okay. So maybe where we talk about staff factors, we talk about resource management. Perhaps we don't have the correct resource to execute the job or the material, okay. And now we've tried to use a plan B instead of plan A, and it actually creates a further problem, unsafe condition. Okay, so let's look at the figure here. Okay, some categories. Okay, so prerequisites for unsafe practices. Yeah, an unacceptable practice of employees results in employee resource mismanagement and personal willingness. Okay, and it can also lead to adverse physiological state, adverse mental state, and mental restrictions. Okay, so these are all the categories of prerequisites for unsafe acts. This is how it starts. Okay, it all starts with us as the human behavior. Okay, various forms of unsafe acts in the working environment. Okay, these can include actions or behavior that violate the rules. Okay, you go against what the company has set out in their safety standards and procedures. Behavior that endangers and threatens others on site. Perhaps it might lead to the fatality of another employee, or behavior that can create danger for an employee not authorized or trained. Okay, so we need to ensure that as the safety practitioner, safety rep, or safety officer, we need to ensure that when our employees come to work, you need to ensure that you have communicated with them. Are they all on the same page? Have you noticed that someone isn't their self today? Okay, you need to pull them aside, communicate with them, and maybe place more attention on their working area if they might have a higher risk at having an unsafe act. Okay. So examples of countermeasures. Okay, so this means a mitigation or control. So example, an unsafe practice, no set standards for safe procedures, which means, okay, so if you're in the company and there's actually nothing implemented for safe policies or procedures, it is regarded as an unsafe and an unethical work practice. Okay, so how would we mitigate against that? We will then develop a safe work procedure, and we will then develop a behavior-based safety culture. We will develop a safety plan to ensure we have safe practices. Okay. Risk-taking is encouraged through work procedure. Okay. Correcting unsafe work design or work procedure. Okay. So we need to continuously ensure that we have designs and programs in place that ensure each task that is carried out has a step-by-step procedure and that each employee follows a procedure when they're executing that task. It goes down to using vibrating tools, okay? There should be a safe operating procedure that identifies how long the employee is allowed to use a vibrating machine for, how long their break needs to be, okay? What PPE they need to wear, what is allowed to be around them, who is allowed to be around them when executing their task. It is so important for each task at hand. We have to have a detailed, safe operating procedure to ensure that everything is taken into consideration. The same when we talk about noise, okay? We have to state what we might be what noise levels we might be exposed to, what is the recommended noise level, what PPE you need to use for that noise level, and how long you are allowed to be exposed to that noise level and have a break from that exposed noise level. Okay. Now, a lot of unsafe practices come from the term called horseplay. Remember, an unsafe practice is mainly comes from our human behavior. Okay, the way we decide to do something, or we are tired and we do something incorrectly. Okay. Now, horseplay, as funny as it might be sometimes, okay, most of the time it results in an injury, okay? Pushing, shoving, okay, maybe you accidentally push someone over a rail. They fall and break their leg, okay? Horseplay can lead to serious injuries. That is why a lot of companies will have signage up saying no horseplay allowed, okay? Especially jokes. When you're working in high-risk environments, if we want to play a practical joke, doing that at your working environment is not the place because it may lead to a serious injury. Okay, falling equipment, knocking sharp tools into someone by accident, slipping and falling. It can really lead to serious injuries. That's why in workshops specifically, no horseplay is allowed, and that is human behavior. Okay, so here we talk about human error or acts. Okay, what could lead to an unsafe practice here? Our loose clothing might get caught onto something. Okay, our forgetfulness. I'm trying to look at the ones that I've not spoken about. Forgetfulness. Perhaps we forget a certain step in the process, and it leads to an injury. Okay. Poor housekeeping. Perhaps when we talk about housekeeping, it means the tools and equipment and material used for that site. Where is it stacked and stored? Is it stacked and stored in the walkway? Okay, if that is the case, there are multiple hazards and risks at play. Here we could have a trip and fall, slip and fall, storage and stacking falling on you. Okay, there is so many different acts that we just walk past without even actually thinking about it. But we walk past so many and witness so many unsafe acts throughout our days. So the next time you're driving, look at all the buildings you drive past. Okay, when you're stopping at a robot, look at your surroundings. See what unsafe acts you have witnessed, and you'll be surprised by how much you yourself might be exposed to. Okay. So taking shortcuts. Okay. Perhaps we need to quickly cross the road, but it's red and the road's busy, so you're just going to take a chance. You get hit by a car. Okay. The choices you make as an employee and an individual on your own will result in the human error behind the unsafe act. Okay. So what is the impact of unsafe practices on the working environment? Well, it leads to a term called days of work lost. Okay, so if an unsafe act happens, the higher the severity of that unsafe act, if it's led to a fatality on site, that site can be shut down by the Department of Labor while that investigation takes place and while the client investigates the death on site, okay? Which means the company is going to lose money, okay? Employees might end up losing jobs, okay? it impacts the company negatively. That is why we need to ensure that we encourage a behavior-based safety culture in the company. Okay, if we can reduce the severity of the unsafe acts on site, we can definitely ensure that we complete our jobs and keep our jobs. Okay, not lose any days of work and not have the company shut down because you accidentally cut over a tree that killed someone. Okay, because you didn't see the tree there. You just turned around and there the saw cut the tree and it fell on someone. Okay. We need to ensure that we not only want to protect ourselves, but want to ensure the company is safe so you can keep your job. Okay. Okay, so physical conditions in the work environment include stresses such as harmful physical agents, such as noise levels, poor lighting, high levels of vibration, okay, chemical agents, okay, gases we might be exposed to, hazardous chemical substances on site, okay, that means paint, corrosive liquids, thinners, it could be acids, okay, petrol, diesel. Ergonomics has also become a very big health and safety hazard at the moment because especially in the construction industry, when we are working on site, there is no workbench and a desk that we get provided. Okay, when you're working, for example, on an oil terminal and there is a pipeline, you are standing there by the pipeline. You have to bend in awkward positions to execute the job. You have to perhaps lie and kneel. Okay, it results in further injuries to your body posture. Okay, back strain. Okay, and stiff neck. Okay, ergonomics has become a very big job hazard that we need to identify and mitigate against. Okay, so that also comes with its own risk assessment. Okay, when we're conducting a risk assessment, you need to ensure that you include your ergonomic factors in that, and how we can ensure our employees are mitigated and minimized to the potential risks. Okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about this now. So when we are talking about ergonomics, if you are continuously and overexposed to a specific repetitive movement for years, and you do the same thing over and over, lifting, reaching, and so forth, it can have the possibility of leading to a injury or disease called musculoskeletal injury, MSI. Okay, that is the result of incorrect ergonomic structure in the company. Okay, that is why we need to ensure that we have the risk analysis for ergonomics in our tasks that we do. Okay, the same goes to work vibrations. Okay, if we're overexposed to vibrations, we can get an injury called HAVS. Okay, same with noise. If we have an overexposure to noise, we get an injury called noise-induced hearing loss. Okay, which will then result in days off of work, which will then result in a potential either retrenchment or a potential boarding, means you can't work because of what you have contracted from your working environment. Okay. So so this is just going to discuss what MSI is. I'm not going to go over that. You can go over that in your own time. I've just put it here for interest's sake, as it is new with ergonomics, as now you'll see ergonomics has now been taken into consideration thoroughly in the Occupational Health and Safety Act as well. Okay, so another thing that can lead to unsafe practices on site is unsafe supervision. Okay, we need to ensure that not only in our behavior-based safety culture, we can't just have the day-to-day operation team executing the day-to-day tasks looking out for each other. There's supervision where it comes to the construction managers, the supervisors, the safety reps, the safety officers. Everyone needs to be on the same page, okay? We need to communicate. If someone is supervising the site and they need to go to the bathroom, you need to communicate that to another manager and say, okay, I need a standby, or I need a relief while I just go to the toilet, okay? Or I need a relief while I just attend a meeting, okay? We need to ensure that the site is always supervised by competent individuals, okay? That is how it works. All right. And at the end of the day, it is up to the organization to ensure the safety of the company and the people who are engaged and working with them. Okay, it comes down to how they want their safety culture to be. Okay, if the one, let's for example see a company is continuously has incidents, continuously closed, perhaps because of multiple investigations, that means they have no safety compliance and programs in place. Okay. However, if you have a company that has numerous near misses reported on a monthly basis with 0 incidents, that means they have a strong safety culture in place because they are identifying potential things that might happen and we are mitigating before it could lead to an incident or accident. Okay, and that brings us to the end. Thank you.